Nobody wants to play with the Indiana Fever. Remember when Sheryl Swoopes said that? Well, Natasha Howard just made her look absolutely ridiculous by not only choosing to join the Indiana Fever, but passionately defending Caitlin Clark and the team against all the haters. She's really excited to also play with Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Leah Boston, like the player that, that I also say stuff on the court to them when I'm like playing against them. But I'm happy I'm playing with them, not against them no more. We're not talking about just any player here. We're talking about a 3-time WNBA champion, former Defensive Player of the Year, and one of only a handful of players in the entire league who averaged 18 points and 7 rebounds last season. So why would an elite star like Howard deliberately choose to team up with Caitlin Clark? And how is she clapping back in defense of Clark and the Fever? Remember back in April when the haters couldn't wait to tear down Caitlin Clark? Sheryl Swoopes led the charge with that infamous quote claiming nobody would want to play with Clark in Indiana. Well, that narrative just got completely shattered, and the basketball world is still reeling from the impact. For months, critics like Swoopes pushed this idea that established WNBA stars would actively avoid the Fever. They painted this picture that veterans would run away from Indiana because they didn't want to deal with the Caitlin Clark circus. The media attention, the spotlight, the packed arenas. It became the go-to talking point for anyone looking to diminish Clark's impact on the league. But then something happened that those critics never saw coming. Natasha Howard, a 3-time WNBA champion, former Defensive Player of the Year, and one of the league's most respected veterans, didn't just sign with Indiana. She chose to return to the very team that drafted her back in 2014 with the 5th overall pick. The same organization where she began her professional journey a decade ago. This is a tremendous, not only a tremendous player, but a tremendous person. And what she's done the last 9 years in her career has put her in the elite company of many athletes and many players in this league. So, I want to say thank you to Natasha and to her family for coming back to us. Because when a player returns to a place that drafted them, that's special. And she chose us, because she could have gone anywhere. This wasn't just any signing. This was a statement that ripped the Indiana is toxic narrative to shreds. Howard didn't hide her excitement about returning to Indiana either. During her press conference, she made it crystal clear, "I just feel like I'm supposed to be here. I'm happy to be back where I started, and also for my family and friends who also see me back where I started that as well." At the end of the day, the way Indiana came at me with everything they promised me, and they keeping their promise, they sold me. And I took the bait for it, and I'm happy to be back where I started, and also being back with Coach. So, and Kelly, and also Amber as well, bringing her along. It's a blessing to be back where I started, and also from my family and friends to also see me back where I started at as well. Just amazing and a grateful feeling to be back in Indiana, New Jersey. What makes this even more powerful is that Howard wasn't pushed to Indiana or settled for the Fever as a last resort. She had options, plenty of them. The emotional weight of this homecoming was on full display during Howard's signing when she was presented with her original Fever jersey from 2014. It wasn't just a contract signing. It was a full-circle moment that visibly moved Howard, connecting her past to what could be an incredible future with this revitalized Indiana team. Coach Devitt's always being on my butt about hustling, working hard. Do the little things, because the little things going to take you a long way. And when I got the minutes that I played my rookie year, I took every advantage of it, and I'm happy to be back next to her, playing with her and her coaching me. And Howard wasn't some afterthought in the Fever's off-season plans. As Kelly Krauskopf, the Fever's general manager, revealed, "When Amber and I started talking from the beginning, the person that's sitting next to me is a high-integrity, high-class, great teammate." Howard was their top target from day one, a player they strategically pursued to transform their roster. The Fever's COO, Amber Cox, couldn't even contain her enthusiasm when introducing Howard, noting, "People say you should have a one-page resume. Natasha cannot have that. It is several pages. The list goes on and on and on." That's the caliber of player who just chose to play with Caitlin Clark in Indiana. But what truly makes this signing special, what completely dismantles the Swoopes-led narrative, is Howard's own powerful words about why she returned. Far from avoiding the Fever, Howard expressed profound gratitude, stating, I'm just really, really honored and blessed to see a team that appreciates me and that want my light. I think it was day one when I got this job. Kelly and I were on the phone, and we had two things on our to-do list: re-sign Kelsey Mitchell and bring back Natasha Howard. We have been focused on this day and this moment since the day we started this process. She even reflected on her growth since her first stint with Indiana, saying, "I just feel like I've grown a lot as a person and just as a player. I feel like a lot of teams didn't really appreciate me how they should." This wasn't just a basketball decision, it was personal. It was about finding a home where her talents and contributions would be valued. Howard didn't just find a team that appreciates her. She found the perfect basketball soulmate in Caitlin Clark. This isn't just any partnership. We're talking about pairing a player nicknamed Flash with perhaps the most creative distributor in the game today. Howard's elite transition scoring ability creates exactly the type of target Clark has been missing in Indiana. While critics were busy claiming nobody wanted to play with Clark, these two were quietly forming what could become one of the most lethal fast-break duos the WNBA has ever seen. Let's break down what makes this combination so special. Howard is a transition scoring machine. Her ability to sprint down the court at full speed, maintain body control, and finish at the rim is exactly what the doctor ordered for a passer with Clark's vision. Last season, Howard was in rarefied air as one of just a handful players averaging 18-plus points per game, while simultaneously pulling down 7 rebounds per contest. That kind of efficiency isn't just good, it's elite. Last season, with a minimum of 25 games played, Natasha Howard was one of just 13 players to average 18 points per game. She was one of 16 players to average 7 rebounds per game. And the list of players to average both 18 and 7 last year: shorts and elite. Asia Wilsett, Breanna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard. Versatility is a major calling card for Howard. The Fever struggled last season with a roster that couldn't fully capitalize on Clark's otherworldly passing ability. Too often, potential assists were squandered by teammates who couldn't keep pace or finish in traffic. Enter Howard, who has built her career on being exactly that kind of finisher. In her introductory press conference, Howard couldn't contain her excitement about this perfect basketball marriage, specifically stating, "I can't wait to run the floor and get those passes," a clear acknowledgement of how she sees her game meshing with Clark's. All of that, and we haven't yet touched upon what Howard does best: defend. Howard was named Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and has finished in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting 3 times in her career. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game in each of her last 7 seasons. And that versatility is really what makes her a weapon on defense. But Howard brings so much more than just offensive firepower. The Fever ranked near the bottom of the league defensively last season, and Howard's arrival immediately addresses that weakness. With a near 7-foot wingspan, she's a defensive nightmare for opponents, capable of guarding multiple positions effectively. The numbers tell the story. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game for 7 consecutive seasons. That kind of defensive disruption transforms a team's entire identity. That wingspan and 6'2" height allows her to be disruptive defensively around the rim on opposing bigs too. In fact, Howard will enter the 2025 season 25th all-time in blocks in WNBA history. Think about what this means for Indiana's young roster. When Howard slides over to help defend the rim, it gives perimeter defenders more confidence to pressure ball handlers. When she jumps a passing lane with those long arms, it creates transition opportunities in the opposite direction, right into the hands of the game's premier outlet passer in Clark. And when Howard calls out defensive rotations with her championship-tested voice, the nickname Flash wasn't given to Howard by accident. Her quick twitch movements and ability to appear seemingly out of nowhere to make plays are precisely what the Fever lacked. Clark's pinpoint passing accuracy is wasted if receivers can't create separation or find open spaces. Howard excels at both, using her speed and basketball IQ to consistently put herself in advantageous positions. Imagine the nightmares opposing coaches will have game planning for this duo. Focus too much attention on stopping Clark's passing, and Howard will feast on one-on-one matchups inside. Pay too much attention to Howard rolling to the rim, and Clark will find shooters spotting up on the perimeter. It's a pick-your-poison scenario that could elevate both players' games to even greater heights. That pick-your-poison duo is just the beginning of Indiana's transformation. When Sheryl Swoopes boldly proclaimed, "There's a lot of things going on in that locker room," she couldn't have been more wrong. The Fever didn't just add Natasha Howard. They assembled what might be the most dramatic one-year roster overhaul in WNBA history. And the results? Well, let's just say Swoopes might want to eat crow right now. Just play with my teammates, just getting to know my teammates on and off the court. 'Cause that's one thing I actually want to know is my teammates first, and then knowing them on the court as well. The Fever's front office didn't stop after landing Howard. They've methodically built a championship-caliber supporting cast that has the basketball world buzzing. DeWanna Bonner, a proven champion with championship DNA woven into her game, chose Indiana. So did sharpshooter Sophie Cunningham, who brings her playoff experience from the Phoenix Mercury. And don't forget veteran point guard and two-time champion Sydney Colson, whose steady leadership and championship pedigree will be invaluable for the younger players. Think about that for a second. In one off-season, a team supposedly nobody wanted to play for somehow attracted 4 championship-caliber veterans. That's not just a coincidence. It's a complete rejection of the narrative Swoopes and other critics tried to establish. These players didn't just randomly select Indiana. They specifically chose to join this roster, this coaching staff, and yes, this team featuring Caitlin Clark. What makes this roster transformation even more impressive is how perfectly these pieces complement each other. The Fever now have the perfect blend of youthful talent and championship experience. Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, and Caitlin Clark provide the young cornerstone pieces, while Howard, Bonner, Cunningham, and Colson bring the championship mentality needed to turn potential into results. The locker room culture transformation could be just as significant as the on-court improvements. Howard isn't coming to Indiana just to put up stats. She's arriving with a clear mission to instill a championship mindset. She wants to show the younger players exactly what it takes to compete at the highest level day after day. This isn't just about adding talent. It's about building a sustainable winning culture. The Fever have strategically constructed a locker room environment where trust and chemistry can flourish. Howard's leadership will be central to this transformation, creating an atmosphere where younger players can develop, while veterans provide the steady guidance needed during tough stretches of the season. For a franchise that's been rebuilding for years, this sudden influx of championship experience has analysts completely reevaluating their expectations. Some are already ranking the Fever as potentially the third best team in the entire WNBA next season, a stunning turnaround for a team that was near the bottom of the standings just months ago. What's most telling about this transformation is how quickly the narrative has shifted. The Indiana Fever aren't just viewed as a team on the rise anymore. They're being discussed as legitimate title contenders. The days of "nobody wants to play there" are emphatically over. Now the question isn't whether players want to join the Fever. Howard's arrival is about more than just boosting the team's talent level. She's bringing a mentality that could define this new era of Fever basketball. Her goal isn't incremental improvement, it's championships. And her confidence is contagious. This team isn't approaching next season hoping to be competitive. They're approaching it expecting to win. The critics who doubted whether star players would choose to play alongside Clark must now confront an uncomfortable reality. Not only did these veterans choose Indiana, but they're already talking about championships. The team nobody wanted to play for has transformed into the team everybody should fear. So as the Indiana Fever continue fine-tuning their roster heading into the new season, they're still finalizing the roster to round out their championship-caliber squad. And yes, I said championship-caliber without hesitation. The narrative has completely flipped from "nobody wants to play there" to "everybody's watching what happens there." What Sheryl Swoopes and the critics missed in their rush to dismiss Indiana was vision. The vision that players like Natasha Howard clearly saw when choosing the Fever. With just one more strategic addition, this team isn't just talking about making playoffs or showing improvement. They're positioning themselves as legitimate title contenders. The transformation is complete. The foundation is set. The culture has shifted. And the question isn't whether stars want to play for the Indiana Fever anymore. It's whether the rest of the league is ready for what's coming.